Hello, welcome back to our year to shine, and welcome back to my wonderful vacation. I am going to show you my beautiful view, just having a relaxing sort of morning this morning. Coming back to you again with another guidepost from Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection. And today we're talking about cultivating a resilient spirit. And with that, what we have to do that is let go of numbing and powerlessness. Have you guys thought much about numbing? I remember actually when I was reading this book, it must have been 7 or 8 years ago now. It was the first time I had really ever thought about numbing. Of course, you hear about addictions and the 12-step program and alcoholics and drug addictions and things like that. But I hadn't really thought about it in terms of maybe smaller things like over shopping or overeating or overly scheduling yourself. Just all these things that sort of, they numb. I was going to say this, they sort of put off your having to deal with uncomfortable feelings and sitting with your own feelings. So we talked a little bit about resilience when she mentioned the having shame resilience, but this is just in general having a resilient spirit. And this is again another thing that goes along with the wholehearted living. So if you're going to be living this wholehearted life, then letting go of numbing and powerlessness and hopelessness, we're going to talk about that as well, will help you have more of a resilient spirit. So what do you think about when you think of resilience? Like, I think of probably somebody who might get knocked down and then just keeps getting up, and doesn't seem like anything can keep them down, maybe. She does say there's a few things that people that have resilience have, and explores in her research how come two different people could have the same sort of experience, and one has the resilience and moves on from it, and the other person crumbles and doesn't. These are the things that make up someone who's resilient. So they are resourceful and they have good problem-solving skills. They're more likely to seek help. They hold the belief that they can do something that will help them to manage their feelings and to cope. And they have social support available to them, and they have a connection with others such as family or friends. So I mentioned Elizabeth Smart in another video where she went on in a situation where I was thinking, like, I would probably not be able to go on from that. So she was very, very resilient, and her family was integral in that. So also what Brene learned through her research was that spirituality is such a big part of having this resilience, because when you have this, it doesn't have to be God or religion even, she says, like, but when you have this belief that there's some sort of a meaning to why we're here and why we're going on, then that's going to give you hope, right? It's going to give you meaning for your life. So she loves her definitions, and she describes spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we're all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Practicing spirituality brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our lives. For sure. So also, in connection with that spirituality, she mentions 3 other things that are important to resilience: cultivating hope, practicing critical awareness, and letting go of numbing, like I mentioned, and taking the edge off of vulnerability, discomfort, and pain. So what do you think you need to have hope? You need to have the feeling in your heart that you can do it, right? And that there's a reason for it. So you can see why the spirituality would tie into this. So having the ability to set realistic goals, so saying, like, I know where I want to go, and being able to figure out how to achieve those goals, including the ability to stay flexible and then develop alternative routes if necessary. So saying something like, I know how to get there, I'm persistent, and I can tolerate disappointment and try again. And then believing in ourselves, saying, I can do it. Yeah. So hope is a combination of setting goals, having the tenacity and perseverance to pursue them, and then believing in our own abilities, for sure. And she mentions sometimes too that some people, as far as achievement, they might feel like they always have to strive and go through pain, and that nothing easy is going to be something worthy of celebrating. But through her research, she really had to realize that that wasn't true, that the facts showed that sometimes things come freely and fast and easy, and sometimes they're a little bit harder, but it doesn't change your hope for them in any way. So that's an interesting thought too. Hopelessness is dangerous, she says, because it leads to feelings of powerlessness. Like the word hope, we often think of power as negative. It's not. The best definition of power comes from Martin Luther King Jr. He described it as the power and the ability to affect change. If we question our need for power, think about this. How do you feel when you believe that you're powerless to change something in your life? You don't feel good, right? Powerlessness is dangerous. For most of us, the inability to affect change is a desperate feeling. We need resilience and hope and a spirit that can carry us through the doubt and fear. We need to believe that we can affect change if we want to live and love with our whole hearts. Practicing critical awareness. So what do you think critical awareness is? We know what being aware is. Being critical would be analyzing that awareness, right? So she talks a lot in this section about advertising, and it doesn't necessarily have to be ads that you're seeing on television or in a magazine, newspaper sort of thing. It can even be things that we're seeing on TV shows that are placed there, or messages that we see, like a celebrity is drinking something, or on Instagram there's all kinds of things that you don't realize are ads, but somebody that's an influencer is trying to show you this next great thing. So she wants us to think of these three things with critical awareness. One, is what I'm seeing real? Do these images convey real life or fantasy? Two, do these images reflect healthy, wholehearted living, or do they turn my life, my body, my family, and my relationships into objects and commodities? Three, who benefits by my seeing these things and feeling bad about myself? Hint, there's always something about money and or control, right? So usually in situations they're trying to tell you what is wrong with your life and how they have the drug or the product or the solution to fix it, and you need to give them your money for it. So when we zoom out from having when we zoom out and we use this critical awareness thinking, we can see a completely different picture. Yeah. And she brings spirituality into this as well, because when you have spirituality, it gives you also a different perspective, meaning, and purpose to your life. When we allow ourselves to become culturally conditioned to believe that we're not enough and that we don't make enough or have enough, it damages our soul. This is why I think practicing critical awareness and reality checking is as much about spirituality as it is about critical thinking. Those are Brene's words. And then she goes into a whole section on numbing, which I definitely think is something worth reading. And she tells us in this section about how she is a recovering alcoholic, but she didn't really find her place in the recovery community, because I think what she learned more than anything was that she had so many behaviors besides alcohol that she probably needed 10 different 12-step programs to fit into a box, which she just didn't feel like it was a match for her. And what she realized was that you can be numbing and not necessarily be an addict. So you, like I mentioned some of these things, like maybe you go out shopping when you're stressed or something, like you need to feel better. And are you addicted to that, or is it just like your go-to thing? Because she does mention that an addiction is when it's chronically or compulsively numbing, but you might just be like dabbling in numbing a little bit. So before conducting her research, she thought that numbing was taking the edge off, and it was just about addiction. But she doesn't believe that anymore, she says. Now I believe that everyone numbs and takes the edge off, and that addiction is about engaging in these behaviors compulsively and chronically. And she believes that genetics and neurobiology can play a critical role in addiction, of course. We know that for sure from research. But she also believes that there's countless people out there struggling with numbing and taking the edge off because the disease model of addiction doesn't fit their experience as closely as the model that takes numbing processes into consideration. So not everybody is the same, and not everybody is to the level of being addicted as well. But addiction is definitely about numbing. Yeah. So she goes into a lot about why she didn't feel like she fit really in the AA model. I think it's funny. She says that if she were really to make a true statement, when you stand up and you say, hello, my name is, and I'm a alcoholic, or whatever you're saying at your meeting, she says, hello, my name is Brene, and today I'd like to deal with vulnerability and uncertainty with an apple fritter, a beer and cigarette, and spending 7 hours on Facebook. So it can be a lot of things. So as you're using your critical awareness and thinking about this numbing, you might say, does this blank, like whatever the numbing behavior is, does it get in the way of me living in an authentic way? Does it stop me from being emotionally honest and setting boundaries and feeling like I have enough? Does it keep me from staying out of judgment and from feeling connection? And am I using blank to hide or escape from the reality of my life? Understanding my behaviors and feelings through a vulnerability lens rather than strictly through an addictive lens changed my entire life, Brene says. It also strengthened my commitment to sobriety, abstinence, health, and spirituality. Yeah. And when you numb out the dark, you numb out the light too. That's really something incredible that I had never thought about numbing as well. And here's something interesting too. Joy is as thorny and sharp as any of the dark emotions. Have you ever thought about that? To love someone fiercely, to believe in something with your whole heart, to celebrate a fleeting moment in time, to fully engage in a life that doesn't come with guarantees. These are risks that involve vulnerability and often pain. When we lose our tolerance for discomfort, we also lose joy. In fact, addiction research shows that an intensely positive experience is as likely to cause relapse as an intensely painful experience. And I had to really think about that one for a minute, because I thought, something really good could cause somebody to relapse? You don't really think about that. But I could see that, because the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking that when something good does happen, sometimes there's a fall from that, and then you realize how unhappy you really are and how fleeting that moment was. She said something about a fleeting moment. Or it could be that you were there was such a build up to that moment, like somebody's getting married or something, and so there was such a build up to that, and then it's that's over, and then you realize what do I have to look forward to now? What am I working towards? Yeah, I guess I could understand that. When I first read it, I really had to think about that. We can make a list of all the, quote, bad emotions and say, I'm going to numb only these. And then make a list of the positive emotions and say, I'm going to fully engage in these. But you can't do that with this numbing. Yeah. She's going to talk to us about joy in the next chapter. That's one of our simple abundance principles as well. Feelings of hopelessness, fear, blame, pain, discomfort, vulnerability, and disconnection sabotage our resilience. The only experience that seems broad and fierce enough to combat a list like that is the belief that we're all in this together, and that something greater than us has the capacity to bring love and compassion into our lives. Right, so there's that spirituality element again. And again, she didn't find that any one interpretation of spirituality has the corner on the resilience market. It's not about denominations or dogma. Practicing spirituality is what brings healing and creates resilience. For me, spirituality is about connecting with God, she tells us, and I do that most often through nature, community, and music. We all have to define spirituality the way that inspires us. And she said it in another part of this chapter too. Like, some people's religion might be going out, and I was watching a guy across there, the way, fishing. Like, you could be out in nature. You could be, like, my place is usually on the water somewhere. I might be journaling. So everybody's church is different. Without purpose, meaning, and perspective, it's easy to lose hope, numb our emotions, or become overwhelmed by our circumstances. We feel reduced, less capable, and lost in the face of struggle. The heart of spirituality is connection. When we believe in the inextricable connection, we don't feel alone. One thing I love about this digging deep section too, I have to read this, like anything that connects to the year to shine always speaks to me. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, do you know that name? She's done a lot of research, or I think she's passed on now, but she did a lot of research on death and dying. And I love this. This is a quote. People are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out, but when the darkness sets in, their beauty is revealed only if there's light from within. I really do believe the light that I saw within the resilient people I interviewed, this is Brene again, was their spirit. I love the idea of being, quote, lit from within. Yeah. So think about that for our year to shine. That was a pretty heavy chapter. And I really didn't say much about my own personal experience. There's a whole lot I could bring into this. I'm working a lot in therapy on resilience because that's something that I don't have. I'm also working a lot on powerlessness and hopelessness. So I could say a whole lot personally as commentary with this recording, but I will just leave it there. Let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next guidepost video, which is going to be about cultivating gratitude and joy, which I think we should be experts at now after having our Simple Abundance year with Sarah Ban Breathnach last year. Love to you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.